Hi guys, this is Adam here with Adam L Photography, and today we're going to be starting a new series called DSLR Basics 101. Our first episode we're going to talk a little bit about the shooting modes that you find on your DSLR. Now before we go right into detail here about these modes, I want to talk a little bit about one fundamental part of photography you must understand first, and that is the principle of exposure. Now the principle of exposure is broken into three different parts. One is shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. The shutter speed is just how quick the shutter opens and closes. Aperture is the iris that you can find on the back of your lens, how wide that is or how close that is to how much light it's allowing to hit the sensor. And the third is ISO, and ISO is basically the sensor's sensitivity towards light. Okay, we won't go into detail about what all those mean today. We're going to talk about that in future lessons, but today we're going to be talking about the shooting modes. And to understand the shooting modes, you need to understand that principle. So let's pick up our camera. I'm using the Nikon D7000 for this demonstration. The main reason is it's right in the middle of the camera range by Nikon. Basically it has all the functions you're going to find on your beginner entry-level cameras such as the 3300, the 5300, but also a few of the features you'll find on more of your higher level cameras. Bear in mind, every Nikon camera has a slightly different layout to a very different layout. So where the dial is on this camera may not be where you find the function on your camera, but I guarantee you it will be there. You might just have to dig through some menus. So let's look at these three basic functions that we're interested in today, which is S, A, and M. These three functions are the only ones I really want you to focus on today. We'll briefly browse over the other functions on the menu, but S, A, and M is where I want you to dial your focus in today. Let's begin with S mode. S mode stands for shutter priority. Now shutter priority basically allows you as the photographer to select the shutter speed that the camera is shooting in. The camera will then adjust the aperture and ISO accordingly to expose the shot correctly. This is fantastic if you're doing any kind of photography that involves motion. Sports photography, cars driving past, kids playing in the park, all these types of photography where you really want to freeze the action and you're going to require a much faster shutter speed. Then shutter priority is the one that you want to be looking at. It'll take care of all the rest of the exposure for you. The next mode we're looking at is aperture priority, which is the A mode. Now, aperture priority will basically allow you to set the aperture of the lens. Now the aperture of the lens, if it's a wide open aperture, say around f1.8 or f2, it's going to give you a very shallow depth of field. And you may have noticed this when you look at professional portrait photography, where the subject's face and eyes are very, very sharply focused, but everything else is a little bit soft and out of focus, especially the background. That's achieved by using a shallow depth of field or a very low number in your aperture. If you want to be doing street photography, kids portraits, portrait photography, you may be looking to use aperture priority mode, especially if you're working outdoors and the light's continually changing. This way you won't have to worry about adjusting your shutter speed and your ISO. You can just focus on getting the focus where you want it on each shot and let the camera do the rest. Bear in mind that when you do use aperture priority, one of the risks you run is that the shutter speed is automatically changing. So if you're in a low light situation, you may find that the shutter speed goes very, very slow. And that can create a lot of motion or handshake blur in your photos, causing the photo to be useless. So just keep an eye on your shutter speed while you're shooting at aperture priority. You'll find that inside your viewfinder. The last mode we're looking at is M mode. M stands for manual. When you're shooting in manual mode, you have to control the shutter and the aperture yourself. The ISO on many cameras will have an auto ISO function, which I use quite often. It's not necessary to use, but you can also adjust that while it's in manual mode or have it on automatic mode if your camera allows that. When you're shooting in manual mode, it's really important to keep an eye on the light meter which you'll find within your viewfinder, because you're now complete control of setting the exposure. The camera is not trying to compensate for anything for you. I highly recommend using manual mode just to help you really understand the basics of your camera and learn how to use all the different functions. But if you are on the fly and you want to be shooting sports or portraits and you don't want to be thinking about what's going on in all facets of your camera, then by all means choose either aperture priority or shutter priority mode. Now, looking at some of the other functions on the camera, we have P mode, which is for program mode. I've never used this mode, I have no need for it, so I don't really know much about it. So I'm going to brush right past that one. Auto mode is pretty self-explanatory. Auto mode, basically the entire camera is completely in automatic mode. So when you point, all you have to do is pick your focus area, and well, actually that's also chosen by the camera. So you just basically point the camera and press the shutter. It's like a point and shoot that way. The next one on this camera is it's like a lightning bolt arrow with a little line through it. They're basically saying keep the camera in automatic mode, but don't allow the flash to fire. And after that, we've got a mode called scene mode. Now, scene mode, you will have come across this a lot in your point and shoot cameras. Basically, the camera has a whole bunch of presets inside the software. For example, sports mode or portrait mode or night shot. These modes basically are telling the camera that you would like to be shooting this kind of photo, and you want the camera to automatically expose it as best it can. So in sports mode, the camera is going to be trying to give you the fastest shutter speed available while maintaining the correct exposure. In portrait mode, it will try to give you the widest aperture possible while maintaining the correct exposure. So essentially, it's an automatic mode where you tell it what your preferences are for how the photo should look or what situation that you're in. The next couple on this camera, for example, are U1 and U2. These are user preset modes. My wife and I both use this camera on occasion, so I've set my mode to user 2. She has user 1, where she has a few of her own presets in there, and by using these modes, you can just pick up the camera, switch it to my user presets modes, and it's ready to go without affecting how she uses the camera. That's basically all there is to say about the shooting modes in this video. If you've enjoyed the video, please like. If you have any questions, drop me a comment below. And please, if you have a moment, subscribe to my channel, and you'll hopefully be able to get updates on all the future videos coming out in DSLR Basics 101 and my other videos along the way. This is Adam L. Happy shooting.